consistent. Let me just give you two examples. This is a study from Scandinavia in using methylphenidate in very severe IV amphetamine abusers, showing that people treated with placebo as compared to methylphenidate, proportion of people that were positive to continue to use drug was much significantly smaller in people with methylphenidate. They also looked at an antipsychotic medication, hoping that that's going to be also effective, but it actually made things worse. So methylphenidate effective for IV amphetamine use. This is a study from Australia, also showing that extended release amphetamine effective for very severe IV methamphetamine abusers, very high dose, 110 milligrams of amphetamine, and there was a significantly better retention in treatment. So people start 100%, over time people drop out of treatment. Those people who were getting medication stay in treatment, which is usually associated with the better outcomes. Mirtazapine, just to show you, because this has been just recently published, again, a non-controlled substance, a very well-tolerated antidepressant. In this study, people who were positive at outset for amphetamine, the reduction of use over the weeks in treatment was going lower and was significantly lower than people treated with placebo, and also other behaviors that were decreased. The other approach is an antagonist approach. It's similar to using naltrexone as an opiate blocker. Again, the idea is that if you give the medication that will block the effects of the drugs, when people are trying to use drugs again during relapse, they are not going to experience the effects of the drug. They're not going to have that much interest in the drug and are able to continue in abstinence. So it may prevent escalation of drug use, which we often see early in the process of relapse. So it works best for people who are abstinent to make sure that they continue to be abstinent. There is a lot of medication, again, that will have these antagonist properties that will block the dopaminergic effects of stimulants, usually indirectly by modulating other receptor systems, such as medication that increase GABA. Those will translate into decrease the dopaminergic effects of cocaine. Medications like topiramate, tiagabine, gabapentin, vigabatrin has been in various settings, not necessarily always consistently, but shown to be effective, especially to prevent resumption of use. Medications that block opioid receptor systems like naltrexone also has an effect on the release of dopamine by stimulants, and also have been shown to be effective to prevent relapse to amphetamine use. Very interesting approach that we are now that NIDA and many investigators are pursuing is a vaccine approach, when you actually give people vaccine to stimulate the production of antibodies that will then prevent the cocaine. In this case, we have only cocaine vaccine from entering the brain and hopefully reduce the propensity to relapse. Let me just tell you a little bit about the one example of the blocker. So topiramate is the medication that is widely used in addiction treatment. Again, it's not approved, but it's certainly many clinicians like myself will prescribe it to many patients for actually a variety of addictions. So in this study, it was used in the 200 milligram dose with a therapy that helped patients continue taking the medication. There was, this is the study done by NIDA, there was really no effect on the general sample. So this is, we see people who are negative urine. So if there is more negative urines, it's better over time. So in the general population, there was some increase in negative urines, people treated with Topamax, but this was not significantly different. But when investigators look separately at people who were negative to start with, those people tended to continue remaining negative when they were treated with Topamax versus people treated with placebo. So again, there is a subpopulation of patients, as Dr. Gerard was telling. We're not going to have medication effective for everybody, but hopefully with time we can identify patients that will be likely to benefit from this medication. So this is the Topamax. And then the combination treatment, I'd like to close with that. We're combining two medications, or you can combine medication and psychotherapy. So Actually, combining medication is the standard treatment in most of the medicine, whether it's a hypertension, heart disease, diabetes. Doctors prescribe usually more than one medication because one medication often is not enough. And we thought about why not to apply the same principle to the drug addiction treatment. We're hoping that combining two medications with a different effect, we may have additive or maybe even synergistic effect. But also, we're hoping that maybe side effects of one medication will be decreased by another medication. So if we find the right combination, I think that may be a very exciting approach. And indeed, the combinations have been recently approved in the United States. There is a combination of two medications approved for obesity, again, stimulant, phentermine with topiramate, GABAergic medication, or bupropion, a stimulant with naltrexone, an opiate blocker. So again, combination of agonists, antagonists, very effective to help people reduce craving for food and reduce weight loss. So we thought about combining long-acting amphetamine, a psychostimulant used to treat ADHD, with a topiramate. We hypothesized that combining two medications that have such a different mechanism will produce an effective treatment. The amphetamine will, again, reverse the dopaminergic deficit seen early in abstinence and help people achieve abstinence. And then the Topamax will reduce the rewarding effects of amphetamine, of cocaine in this case, and will prevent the relapse. And hopefully, if we time it correctly, we can help people achieve long-lasting abstinence. So we've randomized people to, is a control study, to either 60 milligrams of amphetamine of topiramate for 8 weeks. We had a good treatment retention, so people did like the medications, did come to treatment. We had about 150 milligrams dose of topiramate and about, I think, 60 of amphetamines. And indeed, patients treated with the combination had significantly more continuous abstinence. Here we set a very high threshold for outcome. We actually looked at people who achieved 3 weeks of abstinence, which is usually a very difficult thing to accomplish. And just to tell you, this is a proportion of patients, so how many patients from each treatment were abstinent. And when we looked at the whole sample, there was a significant difference for people with topiramate, but this was particularly seen in people who were very heavy users. So people who were the top 30% of how heavy users they were before coming into treatment, people who were treated with placebo, none of them achieved abstinence. And people who were treated with combination of medication, 30% achieve abstinence. So this is a very impressive effect. And again, we would like to replicate the study, and actually NIDA was generous and is funding now a multi-site trial to replicate this finding. And we also may be thinking about replicating in other treatment settings, perhaps even have an international effort with UNODC to fund trials like that for amphetamine dependence in especially needy parts of the world, like Thailand, Brazil, or Saudi Arabia. I would like to close with that, and I would just like to tell you that we have the medications that can be useful in addition to behavioral treatment that we can hopefully use to treat stimulants, and we're hoping that we can find out the patients who will most likely benefit from the treatment. So I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to meet colleagues and talk more about using medications maybe after the sessions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
شكرا للمتحدثين، وبما أن الوقت ضيق فأنا أتيح الفرصة للسؤال أو التعليق في وقت ضيق. الذي لديه سؤال أو تعليق أو تبون استراحة، أعتقد سيكونكم. تفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My question to Mr. Adam. Is there any physical addiction for using cocaine or amphetamine for a long time?
شكرا. في سؤال آخر ولا في تعليق آخر؟ تفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لواء شرطة حمد الخليفة الحسين، جمهورية السودان، الإدارة العامة لمكافحة المخدرات. سؤالي للأخ الدكتور آدم. التقديم تاعه كان جيد، لكن عندي سؤال: هل يمكن استخدام تقنية النانو تكنولوجي في علاج الإدمان، خاصة أن العلاجات المدمجة التي يتم إعطائها أعطت نتائج جيدة؟ Thank you very much.
طيب شكرا. فيه آخر؟ No, if you just wait a minute to تفضل.
My name is Dr. Abdullah Shari. I'm a psychiatrist and addiction specialist. Again, the question is for Dr. Adam. Do you think with us knowing the content of Captagon here, which is in some of the cases does not contain amphetamine,
You speak in English.
just ephedrine, pseudoephedrine.
Repeat it, please.
Okay.
Repeat the question.
Okay. Shall I say it in English or Arabic?
Whatever.
Okay, the question is for Dr. Adam, is about could we apply the same treatment of cocaine and methamphetamine on the Captagon abuser, keeping in consideration that we don't know what's the changes that happened in the brain, and keeping the consideration that the content of Captagon here in Saudi Arabia, in some of cases, does not contain amphetamine. It's just a combination of ephedrine, pseudoephedrine, caffeine, and gas sometimes. Thank you.
Okay. أي مداخلة أو سؤال آخر؟ Adam, please.
Right, thank you so much for all the questions. So I don't think I got the first. Thank you so much for your questions and for the interest in using medications. I'm sorry I didn't get the first question because I think I got an Arabic-only translation, but maybe we can come back to that. The second question, I think, was about the use of nanotechnology. Did I understand it correctly?
Would you like to?
Nanotechnology?
Yes.
So I think this was, I think you mean how we can use nanotechnology to improve the effectiveness maybe of delivery of medications to maybe a long-acting delivery. I think that's a very good point. One of the big problems that we see with patients is that they are not really very compliant with taking medication. So if you ask them to take a medication every day, often they forget, and medication is not going to be effective if they don't take it. So I think there is a room for technological solutions to maybe have a preparations. The medications can be given like say once a week or once a month, but the effect will last for a very long time. I think that is very exciting, and maybe that's where we also should invest. The question about similarities and differences between amphetamine and cocaine. I think, we know that there is a lot of similarities. We also know that there are differences. I think the only way to find out if something is effective is to actually try it. We know that as a general concept, this treatment should work, but the final answer is going to be in the experiment, right? So it's an experimental question. If we conduct a study in a proper way, comparing, active medication and placebo for your specific patient population, that's the only way to answer this question. I think there is enough scientific rationale to try that. We know the treatment is safe. So I think that this is a good starting point. But if we are really desperate for medications, we cannot wait for the science to give us 100% certainty. I think we should also take it in our hands, clinicians, and start using the medication prescribing. And I think that's how we're going to get our answers. I don't know if Gilberto has any.
Dr. Kalber would like to say something?
Yes. I would just like to point out that the classic approach, the use of morality and the use of legal confinement, putting people in prison, has not been adequate by itself. So the key thing, as I see it, for the future is not to simply discard that, but to combine it with adequate treatment and understanding of what's necessary to help the individual. So I think because drugs are very pleasurable, we are wired in the brain to enjoy these agents. God, in His wisdom, has created in the brain these receptors. And when they get stimulated by these normal occurring pleasures, the brain says, that is good, do it again. And when you take these outside chemicals, the brain says, that was good, do it again. And so you need some combination of the pressure that can be put on by the moral and legal approach, but combined with adequate treatment. Thank you.
Please, Dr.
Only one second about Captagon, because I'm very interested to the issue of Captagon here in Saudi Arabia. I think that on one side, we can imagine that the effect is an effect of a stimulant in general, no? Although we don't know exactly, as you said, the details of this kind of drug. But when you say, for example, that we find a type of tablets containing ephedrine or other things and not exactly Captagon, no? In reality, ephedrine is a precursor for amphetamine, no? And so in reality, we are already in the side of the medication targeting the brain in a certain way. And we are really ready with Columbia University, with UNODC, to help the government of Saudi Arabia, as Adam suggested, to create trials, to create studies, no? To really identify a right response in terms of pharmacotherapy for Captagon misuse, abuse.
Can I comment or?
شكرا. أعتقد أن الوقت انتهى وأخذنا من وقتكم الشيء الكثير، لكن نريد أن نأكد على أهمية هذا الحوار. هو في الحقيقة يحتاج إلى وقت أطول وأكثر، ولكن بما أن الوقت محدد يستطيع الإنسان أن يرجع إلى المؤلفات والمقالات التي كتبها المتحدثين. نشكرهم جميعا ونرحب بهم ونتمنى لكم الاستفادة في هذا الملتقى، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
سمو الأمير، عنوان هذه الجلسة التجارب الدولية في رصد ومراقبة المخدرات. أرجو من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن تكون هذه الجلسة ثرية، وأطلب من سعادة الدكتور أن يرأس هذه الجلسة وليبدأ باسم الله سبحانه وتعالى.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Good afternoon, everybody. Our session is entitled The Global Experience in Allocating and Controlling Drugs. We have 5 speakers from different countries in the world, and I would like to welcome them all in our session. Our first speaker is Mrs. Christine Albert. She has a master's degree in political science. She is the head of Serious and Organized Crime Division. She has more than 20 years experience on crime senior, as far as her expertise back in Germany. With this, I would like to give the floor to Christine to present what she has. And please just watch the time as far as we go on.
Highnesses and Excellences, ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues. My name is Kirsten Albrecht, and I have worked with the German Federal Criminal Office since 1993. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the great honor to have the possibility to share experiences in the field of international cooperation referring to combat drug-related crime. I'm much obliged to Major General Othman al-Medhari for for the invitation and your magnificent hospitality in this wonderful country and your warm words yesterday welcoming us. Our presentation about the suppression of internationally organized drug crime, with a special emphasis on the modus operandi of smuggling overseas, will be divided in two parts. In the first part, I will give a very short overview of the situation in Germany, our authority, the legal basis and the structure of the organization. Then we'll have a look at the situation on drugs in Germany in general and have following a focus on the special situation of cocaine and the usual smuggling routes to Germany. In the second part, my colleague Mr. Michael Hoffman will present you several drug cases we covered in the past years. So, if you think of Germany, you will have some ideas, like Germany does not only have Europeans' best soccer clubs, this is with special regards to our Spanish friends on the floor here, and marvelous landscapes and beautiful cars. As you can imagine, there is a flip side of the coin. There's also a wide range of criminal phenomena we have to deal with and do it in a federal system. What does it mean, a federal system? A federal republic of Germany is divided into 16 states, so-called Länder. Each of this has original administrative responsibility for the fields of public finances, in education and cultural matters, and in interior security. Therefore, there exist several police authorities in each state, and in addition, 3 in the whole federation. And there is the Bundespolizei, federal police, with purview, border control, security at, in, and on railway installations and airports, and Polizei des Deutschen Bundestages with a very special duty to secure the parliament and its members inside, and the Bundeskriminalamt, BKA, or German Federal Criminal Police Office, GFCPO. This is the office we work with. In 2010, in the Federation and the states altogether worked around about 245,000 police officers, among those 5,500 with the BKA. The legal application for the police in Germany is to keep up domestic security and order, what we call protection against threats to public safety and prevention. On the other hand, in Germany, the police is subjected to the principle of mandatory prosecution. This obliges to pursue and to clear up crimes. As you remember, there are a lot of police authorities in Germany, therefore there's a need of a kind of central agency for coordination and routing of information. This is the BKA, or German Federal Criminal Police Office, stands for. Please understand the divisions mentioned on this chart as equal entities. The German Federal Criminal Police Office is a competent authority for national and international security services and its function as a central agency in international cooperation and criminal prosecution, in warding off dangers arising from the international terrorism, protection of members of the constitutional bodies, and witness protection. The GFCPO is a national bureau of ICPO Interpol. You know it as Interpol Wiesbaden. We are the Europol national unit and the National Central Office for Schengen Information System searches, what we have in the European Union called SIRENE. We hold official relations with foreign police forces and judicial authorities. We exercise legal assistance, and we have liaison officers all over the world, also here in Riyadh, as I may present you, Mr. Schulz. All these tasks are done in 9 divisions, spread over 3 locations in Germany. as you see here in the chart, Wiesbaden, then Meckenheim, which is next to the former capital Bonn, and Berlin. And what you can see also here is the structure of the federation and the states. Besides its function as a central agency, as mentioned before, the German Federal Criminal Police Office also carries out law enforcement tasks and in certain cases of international and serious crime. As we generally have a federal state police responsibility to investigate criminal offenses, the German Federal Criminal Police Office sometimes also has an original law enforcement responsibility. For example, the internationally organized illegal trafficking in drugs is one of the areas where the GFCPO has original jurisdiction to conduct investigations. The most of those offenses where the German Federal Criminal Police Office has an original law enforcement responsibility are coped with in the division Serious and Organized Crime. The division Serious and Organized Crime is located at Wiesbaden and divided in 5 subdivisions according to crime fields. The subdivision SO2 copes with the offenses related to narcotic and pharmaceutical crime. Presently, I'm the person in charge of this subdivision. There we have 2 specialized units, as you can see, named SO23 and SO24, which are in charge to investigate cases of internationally organized drug criminality. The last mentioned, I'll say, is SO24. This is where we came from originally. The 2 investigation units do, referring to drug cases, absolutely the same. There's no classification, neither to the substances nor to geographic regions in the world or to something else, absolutely the same. The other 2 units analyze the information we get, they enrich them, and try to generate matters to start investigation with. SO21 preoccupies with the analysis from heroin, cocaine, and cannabis products. SO22 with the synthetic drugs and pharmaceutical crime. There also is a very special subunit named Joint Customs Police Precursor Control Unit. There, customs and police officers work together to look for illegal attempts to put aside precursors from legal commerce and transport, which are needed to produce drugs. As you know, there are no drugs without chemical. And this was a short overview about the tasks, duties, and the organization of police work in Germany, and especially in the German Federal Criminal Police Office. Let us now have a look at the general situation on drugs in Germany. The clear-up figure with narcotics delinquency, all in all, is with 95%. That means we deal with an offense referring to research efforts of the authorities. In German, we know this as Kontrolldelikt. The share of narcotic delinquency within the whole delinquency in Germany is nowadays up to 4%. First of all, 7% of the whole drug offenses are those with cocaine. If we look now to the cocaine seizures in Germany over the last 9 years, as you can see it on the chart, you'll notice a sum of seizure cases between 3,300 and around 4,000 a year. The peaks are due to the fact of huge single seizures, and I will mention you some. In the year 2009, there was a seizure of 200 kilo cocaine hidden in a freight coming from Honduras, and the freight was jeans trousers. In 2010, in Hamburg, there had been a seizure of 1,330 kilo cocaine in a cargo of wooden pallets. Origin had been Paraguay, and up to today, the largest single seizure is this mentioned seizure in Germany. Also, in 2010, there had been a seizure of 350 kilogram hidden in a cargo, also came from Paraguay. Here you see South America is a very urgent region for cocaine. In 2011, the last year started with the seizure of 310 kilos hidden in a container of furniture coming from Bolivia via Chile and Hamburg, and this should have been gone via Malta and Montenegro to Serbia, only to show you the routing. Then in July 2011, we will hear later more by Mr. Hoffman, there had been a seizure of 1,127 kilos of cocaine on a German yacht offshore St. Martin, which is in the Caribbean Sea. And in November, there had been 243 kilo. Those had been found in a harbor of Hamburg. And the routing was Ecuador, Spain, United Kingdom, and Germany. And the very special thing was the drugs belonged to blind passengers, which the captain had found. And then we found those amount of seizure of cocaine. And in spite of these impressionable figures, the most illegal smuggling of cocaine is done in a highly frequent way from South America to Germany by airmail. Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay have been investigated as the main origin or transit states. Argentinian airmail consignments often had Great Britain or the Netherlands for destination. Those from Paraguay often came throughout Argentina and should have been sent to Spain. The seizure takes place in the transit area of the International Airport of Frankfurt City. You may know it. Then we have the modus operandi with flight couriers coming with the amount of illegal transported cocaine up to 4 kilo. They often came from Brazil. Consignments do also. And we have couriers smuggling cocaine having been swallowed as a body package of an amount of 1 kilo or even more. This is another phenomenon we have to deal with. If we look at heroin seizures, there we have a decreasing development. In 2011, we have the lowest figure referring to cases since 1986. And despite this, partly huge single amounts of heroin are transported through Germany. In 2012, there had been seized an amount of 250 kilo of heroin, which came from Turkey by a cargo boat via France to Bremerhaven, which is a German harbor. There it had just been reloaded on a truck with destination the Netherlands when it had been seized. Consequently, there's still a huge market of demand for heroin in the whole of Europe, but not so in Germany. But heroin is still the most frequent death cause of the 944 drug-related deaths in Germany we had in 2012. The number of deaths decreases constantly, at last for 4%, but the most addicted die of poisoning, owing to use different substances at the same time. When they die, they have an average age of around about 37 years, and 81% are male. When we go to a very special theme, on a very special field indeed. This is cannabis plantation in Germany. Here we list a continuous increasing. The amount of seized plantation in 2012 rises 13% to now 809. What is so special about plantation? It is indoor, like gardening from fruits or vegetables. The common growth methods produce a THC content of 4 to 5%. Due to successful growth attempts and efforts, like gardening in an indoor plantation, the THC content rises up to 15% and more, which changed this into a really hard drug. An immediate reaction to these facts is shown by the Netherlands. They recently changed their Narcotic Law Act. Cannabis products with a THC content of more than 15% are nowadays considered as hard drugs, like heroin and cocaine. The professional gardening and cannabis plantation produce genetically modified plant substances. And for this reason, there exist more profitable single plants on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have more and several harvests a year. And an advantage for the criminal organization, they take low risk because the place of production and plantation is close to the place of consumption. I only show with a look at the clock that we have hashish problems and marijuana problems, but I will go over to the next. Skip it out. So we have new psychoactive substances, which is a real problem in Germany nowadays. They are often sold as so-called legal highs because as purported legal alternatives to conventional illegal drugs, they are sold in colorful sachets, for example, as a herbal mixture, in capsule forms or in a pill, as a so-called bath salt, in powder form, as plant fertilizer, and so on.
Excuse me, Christiane, you have 5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes to wrap it up.
I just finished. New psychotropic substances are usually no subjects of international or national drug laws. They intend to imitate the effects of existing control drug, but they don't are. NPS are chemically similar to control drugs, but there's a sufficiently different modification in the molecular structure, and this makes them go out of the narcotic law. The way of marketing is internet, head, and smart shops, and designer drugs, as they are called also, have derivatives from piperazine or catinone or synthetic cannabinoids. The worst is we have limited information about the effects of these substances in humans and the harms they may cause. So we have some 100 intoxications and some cases of death in Germany. So let's go back to cocaine. The smuggling of huge amount of cocaine from South America to Europe still is done in containers on the common shipping routes. The recent time, there had been several seizures in different European harbours, I told you before. In addition, there still exists a modus operandi of smuggling large amount of cocaine with sailing yachts, coming from the coast of Middle and South America through the Caribbean Sea, across the North Atlantic to the Azores, and then further to Great Britain, the Netherlands, and France. Other smuggling routes, there are from North African coast by boat across the Mediterranean Sea to Spain, Portugal, Italy, and France. And meanwhile, we notice boats coming up from West Africa coast in a certain distance to the coast of Europe, going through the Atlantic and the North Sea to harbors in Western Europe. The creativity of hiding illegal drugs to smuggle them all over the world seems to have really no limits. Legal products and merchandise are often used for illegal transports like bananas, wood, derma skins, or goods with a national hollow space like paving stones, furniture, machines, and metal products for mining. The organizers use crew members for transport by putting cocaine into holdalls and bringing those inside of containers with illegal goods. And how do we deal all those information? We have liaison officers all over the world, 67 at all, and they are in 51 countries. I just presented you Mr. Schulz here in Riyadh, and the main task they have is to be responsible for obtaining information of significance for both, for the host country and for us in Germany. And my last is a summary. For the successful suppression of internationally organized drug crime, a trusting and close international operational cooperation of all countries of origin, those of transit and of destination is necessary. Primary aims are to identify and dismantle criminal networks, to arrest and sentence organizers, and to seize drugs and criminal assets. Combating drug trafficking efficiently is an international challenge and an obligation, as mentioned before by His Royal Majesty Mohammed bin Naif. So far from my side. If there are any questions to this part, please be so kind and ask them after the second part of our presentation. Let's now have a look at the experience we made in the past years. I give the floor to Mr. Michael Hoffman, who reports on some of our most significant cases referring to the theme. Thank you so far for your attention and maybe for your patience. And so, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, Christine. Our next speaker is Michael Hoffman. Michael got a bachelor's degree in police science and public administration. He is currently the senior investigator and combating narcotic crime and the Division of Serious and Organization Crime in Germany. With this, I will leave it to Michael, please.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As was already mentioned, I would like to talk about narcotic smuggling overseas in general and about some relevant cases of the last years in specific. As you can see, Germany has a rather small coast. The North Sea coast in the west and the Baltic Sea coast on the eastern side. For the fact that Germany is an export nation of products like machinery, vehicles, and chemicals, there is an extensive movement of goods necessary in both directions. Besides several smaller harbors and yard marinas, a huge part of the movement of these goods is carried out by Germany's two largest harbors in Hamburg and Bremen. Faced with these enormous amounts of legal goods, we certainly find as well a wide range of drug smuggling methods. Drugs are hidden nearly in every object you can imagine. But in all creativity, one important disadvantage remains for the criminal group by smuggling drugs concealed in legal goods. In case the drugs are discovered by German customs, for example by using their container radiological units, there's a sender and a receiver of the shipment and further investigations can be carried out. For this reason, another method has become more and more common. Here we find drugs packed in bags and simply put into the container next to the legal goods. An involved person, for example a harbor worker, takes the drugs out of the container before the customs control takes place, which is mostly done when the container leaves the harbor on a lorry or a train. The harbor worker breaks the seals, opens the container and takes the drugs out of it. With the drugs, he usually finds new seals inside the container so that the opening of the container won't be discovered. That means that sender and receiver of the legal goods are not involved. So that in case the drugs are discovered, it is much more difficult for the competent authorities to identify the drug traffickers since there aren't many hints or traces. Here we can see another common smuggling method. Cocaine hidden in banana boxes, which are brought over by banana freighters which commute between Latin America and Europe. Already at the banana plantation, the drugs are put into the banana boxes, which are marked by a sticker or a certain sign, so that at the European destination harbor, a member of the trafficking group, again a harbor worker, takes the drugs out of the marked boxes. Sometimes something goes wrong, for example, a delay or a detour of the ship to another harbor, or the shift schedule of the harbor worker changes so that he has no access to the shipment in question. That means that the drugs stay in the banana boxes and are delivered to their final destination, where they are often found by an employee at a fruit store or a supermarket. And to be honest, I sometimes get hold of myself searching for these packages between the banana boxes when I'm in a supermarket. Now let's have a look at some recent cases. In this case, named Operation Hoppetosse, we led an investigation against a multinational group consisting of 2 German, a Dutch, 2 South African, a Venezuelan, and 2 Surinamese citizens. We received information given by an anonymous message saying that one of these, the 2 German suspects who lived on an isle off the German coast, is involved in drug trafficking. Further investigations showed that this group planned to transport a large amount of cocaine from South America and the Caribbean Sea to Europe. In 2010, the first attempt failed due to problems to provide the drugs to the crew who was responsible for the transport by yacht across the Atlantic Ocean. In the end, the sailing seasons ended and the group had to wait for the next year. So with the group, we waited for the next sailing season and the second attempt. With the assistance of several foreign authorities, we succeeded at last with a seizure of 1,122 kilograms of cocaine near the Antilles and the arrest of the crew members and the wire pullers of the transport. The drugs were hidden professionally on board the yacht. This case is a good example for the requirement of international cooperation in the fight against international organized crime in general and in narcotic crime in particular. This success is also based on the close cooperation with several Caribbean states, as well as the Netherlands, Spain, South Africa, Switzerland, and Luxembourg. In this case, as well, have been 19 liaison officers of our office involved. The Operation Südwind, so-called Südwind, was based on information given by French authorities about the seizure of more than 4,000 kilograms of hashish on a former fishing boat off the French North Atlantic coast. The ship was on its way to the North Sea, traveling along the French coast in north direction. The crew consisted of 6 Lithuanian members, and the ship sailed under German flag. When we initiated coordinated investigations in Germany and France, they led to the identification of the German organizer and, at last, one similar transport in the past. The drugs had been located on board the ship, had been loaded on board of the ship off the Moroccan coast and should have been unloaded at a little marina in Germany. Another case dealing with yachts and showing a similar modus operandi was the Operation Kodak. A drug trafficking group consisting inter alia of 1 German citizen planned the transport of a mentionable amount of drugs by yacht from the Caribbean Sea to Europe and Germany. After having loaded the drugs on board of the ship, the Atlantic crossing started from the Virgin Islands via the Azores to the Netherlands, where the Dutch authorities seized the drugs and arrested the crew, which only consisted of 1 person. To the surprise of the involved forces, the drugs turned out as hashish and marijuana and not, as everyone had expected, as cocaine. But nevertheless, the group would have made a huge profit of it. The German suspect was born in Munich and had moved to the Bob Marley Island, Jamaica, where cannabis products are rather common. So this is the reason why they had hashish and cannabis on board. Last operation I want to present you was our Operation Tour. These investigations started based on an information which was given once again by the French authorities about the arrest of a German and a Colombian national in the possession of 7 kilograms of cocaine. These two couriers stated that they had wanted to bring the cocaine from Madrid in Spain to Berlin in Germany. Further investigations allowed the identification of the Colombian wire puller in Berlin and several other group members. Wiretapping and other concealed investigation methods showed a network of several other group members residing in different European countries such as Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, Great Britain, and overseas in Colombia and Costa Rica. Very soon the group organized a new delivery of cocaine from Colombia to Germany by using a banana freight ship. However, they didn't hide the drugs as shown before in banana boxes, but took the advantage of the support of an involved Philippine crew member who hid the drugs on board of the ship. The plan was to drop the bags with the drugs overboard during the dischargement of the ship and the legal goods at Hamburg Harbor in the night. Therefore, another accomplice who worked at Hamburg Harbor should have come alongside the freight ship with a barge, and the Philippine would have dropped the bags with the drugs onto the barge. For the harbor worker, it would have been easy to get the cocaine out of the harbor without any controls. For this reason, the German group members traveled from Berlin to Hamburg 2 days in advance. While waiting for the arrival of the ship, they received a phone call from another accomplice who wanted to get rid of a smaller amount of cocaine and who asked if they could cope with these additionally. They agreed, and as they already had been under surveillance, we arrested our group, which were 4 people, together with those who took the additional drugs to the handover. This amount was another 4 kilograms of cocaine. And after that, the next day, the job was easy for us, because instead of them, we waited for the banana ship at the pier, and with a little help of the captain, the Philippine very soon agreed to cooperate with the German police, so that we could seize on board of the ship another 48 kilograms of cocaine in 2 bags, as shown before. This Philippine crew member stated that he had done one similar transport some months ago, so that the group was arrested for trafficking with 73 kilograms of cocaine all in all. These cases show that combating narcotic crime is and will be in the future very important. But we have to take another important question into account. What about the profit made by these organizations? In the context of another case, led by the German Federal Criminal Police Office, separated from this case, 8.7 million euro in cash had been seized in the luggage of a German and a Lebanese citizen at Frankfurt Airport. They wanted to take the money to Lebanon. In the course of further investigations, we found out that the main suspect of this group had been in phone contact with the wire puller of our mentioned Berlin group. The suspect from Berlin stated that he had met this Frankfurt suspect a few days after the first cocaine delivery, which was mentioned by this Philippine crew member, in order to hand over 250,000 euros. The deal was to transfer the money to Colombia in order to buy new drugs there and to store the profit. This shows impressively that the German Lebanese group was responsible for money laundering and the transfer of money generated by drug trafficking and probably other offenses in any destination all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, so far so good from my side concerning illegal drug traffickers and money laundering. I hope I've made myself clear, so if not, anyway, we can proceed to questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Our third speaker from Singapore, Mr. Lim Zi Yok. The Superintendent Lim is a Senior Assistant Director at the Central Narcotics Bureau in Singapore. He has been senior narcotics officer for more than 13 years. Mr. York got a master's degree in strategic studies. With this, I will invite Mr. York to present.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm York from Singapore, Central Narcotics Bureau. It is an honor, a pleasure to be here. So much experience, so much expertise. I'll be sharing on Singapore's experience in narcotics control today. Allow me to bring you through the following. I'll first be sharing on the background of Singapore's Central Narcotics Bureau, CNB for short. This will include a brief history of CNB, our vision, mission, and values, as well as organizational structure. I'll then talk about how Singapore tackles the drug problem through our integrated anti-drug strategy. This would include our powers under the Misuse of Drugs Act, our role as a lead agency in preventive drug education efforts. Following that, I'll share on the local drug situation. And last, I'll speak on some of the challenges that we face in keeping Singapore drug-free and how we are going to deal with these challenges. First, a brief background to the Central Narcotics Bureau, CNB for short. CNB was formed in 1971 in response to a growing drug problem in Singapore. In the 1960s, Singapore was rampant with drug abuse, drug trafficking. In those days, you would see drug traffickers operating very openly, very blatantly in the open. Things have improved. Things have come a long way since. Prior to CNB's formation, drug enforcement was carried out by both the police as well as the customs. CNB had a very humble beginning in those very early days. We had a small force, less than 20 officers. Since then, CNB has grown to become Singapore's lead agency in the fight against drugs and also in preventive drug education. CNB is part of the Home Team under Singapore's Ministry of Home Affairs. The other departments in the Home Team include, for example, the Police Force, the Customs, Singapore Prisons Service, and so on. What is common amongst the Home Team agencies is to bring about a safe and secure home for everybody. To leverage on this Home Team concept, CNB believes in leveraging on good working relationships with our counterparts. A close working relationship with our counterparts in the Home Team helps us to ensure that the drug problem is tackled comprehensively at all fronts. CNB is led by our director, Mr. Ng Se Song, assisted by our deputy director, Mr. Marvin Sim. There are 4 operational units, 5 staff divisions. In addition, we also have an audit unit as well as a team of psychologists assisting us. What does CNB seek to do? CNB's vision is to be a leading, dynamic law enforcement agency in the fight against drugs to make Singapore drug-free. To achieve our vision, we conduct vigorous enforcement against drug offenders, actively cooperate with local and foreign agencies in drug-related matters, and promote a drug-free lifestyle through preventive drug education, as well as active engagement of the community. The CNB core values encompasses the essential characteristics of a CNB officer. Not forgetting the society that we serve, we continually seek to give back to the community through charity, through community service. I'll now move on to the second part, CNB's integrated anti-drug strategy. How do we go about doing our work? Singapore's national blueprint on drugs takes a holistic approach. This blueprint consists of 4 main strategies. They are mainly drug enforcement, preventive drug education, treatment and rehab, aftercare, and continued rehab. All these strategies aim to reduce the demand and supply of drugs in Singapore. CMB is responsible for coordinating preventive drug education efforts, as well as effective tough laws and enforcement actions against drug offenders. Prisons. Prisons is responsible for the treatment and rehab of inmates. Singapore adopts a compulsory treatment and rehab regime for abusers of all commonly abused drugs. The director of CNB is empowered under the MDA, the